Okay.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Dobre utro.
We are in Mishnah Shabbos, Perek Daled, chapter 4. We started Mishnah Beis yesterday, but just quickly start from the beginning. Just to quickly the beginning of the Mishnah, and then we'll finish it up. So it's Perek Daled, Mishnah Beis, chapter 4, Mishnah 2. I dedicate this morning's learning in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shlomo Rabinowitz, Shlomo Spas Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer. Okay, so you can wrap up the pot of food with animal hides and you can move them. With shearings of wool, but they may not be carried. They're muktzah. So he's got his pot covered with these shearings. What's he supposed to do to be able to get to his food? With the muktzah shearings on top of it, surrounding it. You can take hold of the covering. Again, the covering is you're able to get hold of it without having to move the muktzah. You pick up the cover and the shearings fall off on their own. As we explained yesterday, that's not a problem of moving muktzah. To directly move the shearings, you're not allowed to do, that's moving muktzah. But to move the pot cover and indirectly have the shearings move, that's permissible because you were doing that indirect moving of muktzah for the purpose of something permissible, which is the food inside the pot. Okay, now we continue from we finish up the Mishnah we didn't do yesterday. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Elazar ben Azariah says, Kupa, you have a box. Now, the way this box seems to work is that the box had these wool shearings on the sides, and you had the pot inside the shearings. You got this box, and along the sides of the box, you have all these shearings. So the pot itself is filling up, a certain area of inside the box. And over all the sides of the pot, you're going to have the shearings. Now, understandably, if you go ahead and you remove that pot from what you insulated in those shearings, what's going to happen to those shearings after you take out the pot? They could basically collapse into the middle, which will not allow you to put the pot back. There's nothing wrong if let's say you had a pot, as we're going to learn soon. If you had a pot that was covered, permissibly, we're talking about things you're allowed to cover it with. And then you took it out and you want to put it back to be covered again. There's nothing wrong with that on Shabbos. You can't initially cover it on Shabbos, but if you had it covered and then you're putting it back, that's not a problem, as we're going to learn in the end of the Mishnah. But in this case, there could be a problem because when he takes the pot out, all the shearings from the side will collapse into the middle, which will not allow you to put the pot back. And you can't take your hand and move away the shearings because they're muktzah. Okay, so that's the situation here. So Elazar ben Azariah says, Kupa, if you got this box with the pot inside of it, or surrounded by the wool shearings. So if you want to take out this pot, Elazar ben Azariah says, Mata al tzida, you lean the pot over, you tilt the box, you tilt this box, the noitel, and you take the pot out. Let me read to you how this is supposed to work. He should tilt the box containing the shearings and the pot onto its side, and then remove the pot. That way, all the shearings will slide to one side, and when he wishes to replace the pot, he can place it in the area of the box that is empty of shearings. Then, when the box is once again stood upright, the shearings will fall around the pot. You follow that? The shearings will fall around the pot. So by tilting it onto the side, right, assuming that the pot cover is not going to come off and everything's going to spill out, right? But you tilt
that's my question.
Okay, but assuming that's not going to happen because the cover is on tight. Okay, you take out the pot. Everything falls to the side, and when you want to put the pot, and again the box is still on a tilt. You put the pot back in, and then when you tilt it back, everything will fall back into place. Okay. That's how they're explaining it. I don't really get it, but that's how they're explaining it. And the point is that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says you got to do it this way. Shema yitol v'neyachal hachzer, because you may take the pot out and not be able to put it back. And if you don't tilt it over, then you have it. It's not for sure going to happen that way, but it could happen that the shearings will collapse into the middle. You won't be able to put the pot back. You're not going to be happy with that, and you'll forget yourself, and then you'll move away the shearings with your hand to put the pot back, and that you can't do. So therefore, Lesbian Azariah says, to begin with, when you have this whole setup, which again, I guess is hard for us to picture exactly what it is, but if you have this whole setup with the box and the shearings, you can only take the pot out if you tilt it on the side. So that if you want to put it back, you'll be able to put it back without having to move the muktzah with your hand. But if you don't tilt it on the side, you cannot take the pot out. Lesbian Azariah says you're not allowed because we're afraid of what could happen. We're afraid that it could collapse, and then when you want to put it back, you'll move the muktzah with your hand to put it back. That's Lesbian Azariah's opinion. The Chachamim say, noitel umachzer. No, you're allowed to take it and put it back. When Lesbian Azariah had his whole way of doing it tilted to the side, and again, it's kind of hard to understand exactly how it works, but kind of hard to understand it without really picturing it, without seeing what the setup really was. But nonetheless, the Chachamim say we're not afraid of that. Meaning the Chachamim are not afraid that if you take it out regularly and that the shearing slaps into the middle and you won't be able to put your pot back, then you're going to move it with your hands. They're not concerned about that. And therefore they say, you want to take it out without tilting it, you can do that. And if the shearings don't collapse, you put your pot back. And if the shearings will collapse, you don't put the pot back. Or, probably guess practically speaking, you don't, because you can't move the shearings over anymore because it's muktzah. So the Chachamim agree that the shearings are muktzah. You can't move it with your hand. But they just say that we don't go so far. We're not that concerned to go so far as to say that I cannot take the pot out of the box without tilting it on the side. You want to take the pot out regularly? Take the pot out regularly. Hopefully, nothing will fall into the middle. If it does, you can't move it with your hands. The Chachamim agree. And if that means you can't put your pot back, you can't put it back. But the whole argument is, to begin with, if I have this pot and this whole box with the shearings, this whole setup, am I allowed to take it out regularly or not? And the Chachamim said you could. Next, the Mishnah says, Loi kisau meba'ayim. This is a general rule about hatmana, which we've been mentioning before, but here's where the Mishnah says it explicitly. Loi kisau meba'ayim. If you did not cover the pot with whatever you're covering it with, that you're allowed to cover it with. If you didn't do it while it was still day, meaning before Shabbos, you may not cover it once it gets dark. That means even if you're using something that doesn't add heat, which we say you can insulate your pot with before Shabbos, you cannot do it on Shabbos. Why is that? As we said before, we're afraid if on Shabbos you walk over to the pot to insulate it and you find that it's not hot, you're going to actually heat it up because you're going to kind of lose yourself with the fact you're not going to have hot food. And therefore, you can't basically deal with the pot on Shabbos in any way of keeping it warm. Kisa v'nisgala. Now let's say kisa v'nisgala. Let's say you covered the pot before Shabbos properly and it became uncovered, which the wording of the Mishnah is, you put the shearings on top, let's say. Oh, that's shearings. You put whatever you can put on top that's not muktzah, right? You put the animal skins on, and then they fell off. Kiso, you covered it, v'nisgala, and it came off. Can you put it back on Shabbos? The answer is yes. You can put it back. Meaning as long as you, before Shabbos, properly covered it, if it becomes uncovered on Shabbos, you can put it back. And not only if it becomes uncovered, can you put it back? Let's say you purposely took it off. Okay. You took it off. You wanted to serve some food. You took it off. You took out some food. Now you want to put it back. You can do it. The point is that on Shabbos, even though I cannot initially cover it on Shabbos, if it was covered before Shabbos, and become uncovered on Shabbos, I can cover it on Shabbos. Then the Mishnah concludes, Mamale es hakitain, you can fill a jug with cold water, and put it under your akar is a pillow, a keses, they call it a cushion. Now, why are you doing this? Because you want to take out the chill. So you put it under this cushion, under the pillow. Take out the chill. Is that called doing atmana on Shabbos? The Mishnah says, no, it's not. You can do it. It's not a problem about atmana, even though you're doing it on Shabbos. Why? So it seems like the Bartanura learned, the answer is because doing this, like taking something cold and putting it under a cushion to take out the chill, is not derech atmana. That's not the normal way that you cover a food to make sure it stays hot or to give it some kind of heat. Now, the Bartanura sounds like it's not normal to do that with a pillow or a cushion. Other Mefarshim, other commentaries explain that that's not what you do with cold water. It's just not the way you do it. It's not normal to go ahead and take something cold. It's unusual to wrap a pot of cold food in order to warm it. Now, you're not going to actually add heat to it. Yeah. That you can't do. But the point is, although you're trying to warm it in some way, take out the chill, to go ahead and take a pot of cold food and wrap it to warm it is not that's not the normal thing to do. It's not the usual thing to do. Therefore, it's not included in the prohibition of hatmana. On the other hand, if we're talking about the material that adds heat, then if we're talking about material that adds heat, you can't do that to a cold food either. That concern that we have when you wrap in something that adds heat is a concern that we're concerned that prohibition applies even to something cold. Here we're talking about where it doesn't add heat. It's just regular atmana, trying to keep in the heat or trying to add some kind of heat, but not because of the fact that it adds heat, just some kind of warmth that's there. We'll take out the chill. That is something that we say is not usual to do with something cold, and therefore it's permissible to wrap it on Shabbos. Have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you.